Hey, this is the Hard Truth, Tony Shaffer on the America Out Loud Talk Radio Network and the Podcast Network. We are powered by 6 Hour, never settle. I had a choice of what I carried in combat. I always carried the best. The best is 6 Hour. Let me see what I got in my bag of goodies. Pulling out my faithful civilian copy of the M18, the AXG grip. It's metal, metal on metal, great weapon. I highly recommend it. This is what we carry today in the military. So it's a good weapon. 6 Hour, never settle. Check us out at Project Sentinel, projectsentinel.com and .net. We do things under this umbrella where we actually focus on constitutionality of everything from economics to intelligence collection to military operations. And we also have a new sponsor that we're bringing on, Swiss America. Swiss America does a number of things to help educate people regarding the importance of hard currency. So one of the things we recommend is their free copy of The Secret War on Cash. It's a newsletter which helps you to prepare you and your family for the potential hard times that may be coming in the future. So be sure and reach out to Swiss America. Call to get a free copy of their Secret War on Cash. It's a newsletter. 800-289-2646. We'll say it again later. 800-289-2646. Tell them Tony Shaffer sent you. And without further ado, we're going to bring in our guest this week. It's Captain Tim Nick. Captain Nick is a member of the Florida National Guard. He doesn't look very tan, so he's not been doing his job in beach patrol. So that's too bad, but I'm sure he'll get over that. He's a good all-around guy. I like Army guys being one. It's kind of convenient. Captain Nick was a whistleblower, actually had the courage, not only the integrity, but the courage to act on his integrity to go become someone who testified on certain events on the 6th of October. And Tim, I didn't tell you this in the pre-interview, but I went against the Bush White House. I was a whistleblower, and look, I'm a conservative. I don't hide that. I'm a Reagan guy. My belief was my obligation is to my oath of office first and foremost, no matter who's in charge. So anyway, Tim, welcome to the Hard Truth.
Well, thanks for having me. And it was actually for events on January 6th, 2021 with the DC National Guard deployment is the reason I was testifying before the House Oversight Committee. Other things
and I don't know if people fully understand that I always clarify this because we have a wide audience. So the Guard is Title 34. I think it's 34, right?
Title 32. There's three. There's three activations. It's like Title 10 for active duty,
right?
Title 32 for National Guard, and then for states, you have state active duty, which is the governor's activated for whatever they want to do.
So the states have different authorities because technically the Guard belongs to the state. The Title 10, as you correctly identify, brings Guard to federal duty. And during the wars, National Guard units served side by side with regular Army units, with distinction, by the way. And so you were a member of the Guard. I think you were on Title 10 orders on the 6th of January.
No, so we were with the DC National Guard. So the DC National Guard is a very unique entity. It's the only National Guard that is federalized. So every time we're activated, it's all Title 32 orders. So we're
gotcha. And so Title 32, again, notably different than Title 10. You guys technically have a policing authority because the Guard actually, during times of crisis, can be used as a policing organization. And when I went through basic training back in '81, we were separated out because we had to go through riot control training, which is separate from the regular Army.
Correct.
And so you've been a Guard officer, I think, most of your career. Is that correct?
Majority of my career, I enlisted back in 2011. So I was enlisted for about 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And then became a cadet and then commissioned. So most of my career has been an Army officer. So
yeah. And just so you're a signals guy, right?
Signal branch right now, looking to transfer to admin general to human resources, but I commissioned as a signal officer.
Yeah. So again, I'm an MI guy. So I told you don't be an MI. MI, they're a bunch of weenies. Just saying. They talk big, but they shrink away as soon as they get. It's like a vampire with holy water. It's like the moment you get them into combat, it's like, oh my God, people are shooting at me. It's like, yeah, that's what happens here. Anyway, I digress. But So let's talk a little bit more about how you came to be there on the day of January 6th. You started off as a Florida patrolman, highway patrol. By the way, shout out to the great state of Florida. I love Florida. I don't know what part you're from. I love Tampa, Ybor City, cigars. I'm a big cigar guy, so my heart goes out to Tampa. And I know Governor DeSantis. I worked with him a little bit when he was in Congress,
Okay.
and so I think it's a good state. So you started off in working as a patrolman in the state, right?
As a state trooper.
Yeah,
I was at auxiliary state trooper when I was going through college, which is I think Florida is one of 2 or 3 states that has that program. So you're a
that's cool.
volunteer state trooper. So I was doing that on the weekends when I had free time. And then I became full time after I graduated. And then back in 2018, I joined the Secret Service and moved to DC, and then eventually transferred to the DC National Guard. So I kind of had an interesting career with that, and everything kind of combined with different federal and state agencies I've worked with.
Yeah. So I got to ask you because one of our friends, Chris and I, Chris will come on later in the show, is Jack Hughes. You probably don't know Jack, but Jack wrote the soundtrack to Live and Die in L.A., which is about the Secret Service. Have you seen that movie by chance?
Yeah, I believe I've seen a couple of Secret Service movies.
Yeah. So Chance is the main character there. So anyway, Jack is a friend of our well, he's been on another show that I'm on with Chris. Anyway, I'm sure that your Secret Service experience wasn't like the Live and Die in L.A., right? I hope not.
No, no, it was. I mean, I was on the night shift working at the White House, so it was kind of
Yeah.
it was
So you weren't
interesting.
out chasing people and hooking up with prostitutes and stuff like that.
No, I
No,
was
thank God. Thank God. I just want to make sure.
standing in the snow, going, "Why am I signing this post right now?"
So you survived that and you went on. And so it's interesting then went back to the guard. You were in the guard, commissioned, and then you ended up you mentioned you were commissioned in Connecticut, right?
I'm originally born in Connecticut, so I was trying to go
Oh,
back to
cool.
Connecticut, and when it didn't work out, so I transferred back to the Florida National Guard to the 146 Signal
Yeah.
Battalion. Then when I got hired with Secret Service, I transferred to the DC National Guard, and then got selected as a commander for Public Affairs Detachment, DC Public Affairs Detachment. And then during that time, also, I got selected as aide de camp to General Walker.
Yeah.
He was actually a retired DEA agent, so when he read my profile and said Secret Service, I was like, "Oh, when can you start?" So,
That's great. So I wish one of our colleagues can't be here today because she's an actress, and she's off acting, doing stuff. But Elizabeth Breckenkamp is normally here. She was my headquarters PAO during my last assignment, and they helped do the review of my book, Operation Dark Heart. As a public affairs person, you get involved in the clearance process of reviewing information. So anyway, I submitted my book. Elizabeth was part of the higher headquarters detachment, and she retired as a public affairs person as an E7 out of the reserve out of the reserve. So anyway, too bad she can't be here, but she would have had a lot of great questions for you. But we'll try to make up for her not being here and continue the
no worries.
conversation. So I'm a public affairs guy, as you know. I mean, I've actually served as a lieutenant. When I was a second lieutenant, I was the public affairs officer for the 371st Support Group. Actually got stuck doing congressional visits, had to do organizations, send people off to attend things at Glenn Air Force Base when we were doing Bold Eagle. Had to go to do stuff at COSCOM in Fort Bragg. Did all this stuff, and I never went through the course. So, what was the Army Public Affairs course like at Fort Meade? Just give me a thumbnail of what it was like.
Well, it
Did you
was.
learn anything?
I definitely did. It was different though because it was during COVID-19, so everything was kind of a little different at the time. But I went in May 2020, right after I got activated for the riots at the White House.
Yeah.
Um, I was put in the Joint Operations Center, just observing traffic cameras and assisting with coordinating police movements. But after that, I got sent straight to Fort Meade because I took command of the Public Affairs Detachment. It's about a 3-month course, and they teach you like pretty much everything public affairs related they can. So it'd be like how to write a boilerplate or things when it comes to media, how to interact with the media, do mock interviews, how to brief the commander when it comes to.
Yeah, I've been in those and they suck. I mean, I'm no offense to you, being a media guy and having to have done this is like the way the Army teaches it isn't like the way it really works in the real world.
No,
It's like,
it was interesting though because I had no media experience, so it was
yeah,
definitely a eye opener. And how taking pictures and making captions and creating um, things like that for media personnel to review and kind of they talked about how to assist with embedding media folks in operations and things like
yeah.
that. So it was very different. So it was helpful. It definitely helped because when I was aide de camp for General Walker, when all that was going on, I assisted the state public affairs officer during his before
Oh, I'm sure that's true.
yeah, when they
Yeah,
were prepping
I'm
for
sure
his
that's true.
congressional
No,
testimony. So
and so yeah, I want to talk about it, but that is something because I've worked a lot with aide de camps because of the stuff I do. Let me make a little explanation. So we operatives, when we do stuff, we don't for some of the operations. I mean, it's like the movies. We run things off the books, and so when we're doing things off the books, the aide de camp generally is like the person who knows that we have to go talk to his boss with nobody else in the room.
right, generally a
So the
personal.
aides generally like, and your general will tell you, it's like, yeah, that guy's a knucklehead. Don't let him in. He's a good idea merchant. Don't just put him off. So that's your job. You're like the traffic cop, right?
Yeah, you do everything and everything. So be transportation, logistics, security,
Yeah.
just prepping for meeting, pretty much everything. So
So that brings me to the next point. So, um, what compelled you to do the right thing? To go and say, "Hey, something's wrong. I was there that day." Walk us through a little bit of just how you came to that conclusion, if you don't mind.
okay, well, I'll start after January 6th. I think majority of folks know what happened, and my testimony is out there.
Yeah, I'll have
After
that. Yeah.
after that, we were at the Capitol for about 6 months. There was about 20,000 guardsmen. At some point, it kind of whittled down, but they were, it kind of got over. I don't know how to say. I guess overrated. Every 45, 50 feet, you had a guardsman with a rifle, and it was
Oh,
about.
I remember. I saw it down there. Yeah.
But at some point, the Department of Defense Inspector General started doing a review of what happened, why the DC Guard took so long to deploy, and there's this narrative coming out from the Pentagon, from I guess you could say the good old boy system of they're kind of doubling down of what happened compared to what actually happened, and um, so I was actually, and then Congress jointly they had I guess a select committee on January 6th attack. They were kind of looking into it too. So
Oh yeah.
they reached out to me too. I believe it was in November of 2021, and to it for an informal interview. So I agreed to do that. After the interview, that's concerned about what was going on. I reached out to Tully Rickney. They were a legal firm out of DC. I actually used them before to appeal an officer evaluation report for a commander that got
Yeah,
elected from.
and a quick shout out to Tully Rickney. They've been very friendly to us
Yeah,
and made you available. We interviewed your lawyers a few weeks ago, and a shout out to Dan Meyer, my friend Dan. Dan was the IG doing. He was one of the investigators on my uh, complaint of wrongdoing. By the way,
right.
not
Yeah,
my wrongdoing, their wrongdoing. And
right. So
just say it. It's like, oh,
similar
it's those guys.
comparison.
But anyway, so just shout out to them for supporting you.
But I was familiar with the firm because I used them before for that OER appeal, which I partially got approved. So I, I enjoyed working with them. And then they put me in touch with Dan when I reached out again. And Dan reached out. The reason I reached out is because I got a random email from a political correspondent. So I guess after my interviews, someone leaked my information, my notes, and everything else.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
So
that stuff
after
happens
that,
in Washington.
I reached out to them. He kind of knew the players on the committee and just sent you know, a, an email saying, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And after that, I didn't hear anything else. That was the last I heard from the Department of Defense. I didn't even hear from the Department of Defense, but that's the last I heard from the Select Committee. And after that, when the Department of Defense released their Inspector General's report, I read it and I was just shaking my head, going, "What are they talking about? Like half this stuff is inaccurate. They were rounding language. They were avoiding using certain words or phrases, or they were just trying to point blank. They're pointing the blame, ducking and covering. Go, oh, it wasn't us. It's like, oh, but it was. So, and
Welcome to my world. Yeah, no, I
I
get
actually didn't know because I at one point the Army lied about General Charles Flynn being on the call, who is now, I don't know why they put him in this position, but he got promoted to a 4-star command and is now the commanding general for Pacific Command. I'm like, okay. the good old boy system at work in the Pentagon. But I don't know
Yeah.
why they did that. But I didn't know at the time when I heard Flynn on the call, I'm scratching my head like Michael Flynn. I thought he retired, and then someone reached over and said that's his brother. I'm like, oh, so it's just like what's going on here? So because
Yeah.
Charles Flynn and Michael Flynn, they're brothers. I didn't know that
Well,
until
there's a lot of
January
Flynn's.
6th.
I know Mike.
Yeah. But but
Well,
that's why
look,
that's why the
I've
army
been in a
lied.
room with.
Yeah, but that's why the army lied because
Yeah, no, I've been in
they
a room
said
with Mike. Yeah.
yeah,
No, I no, I get it. No, I look, I knew the previous chief of staff. As a matter of fact, there's pictures of McConville and I going through the line when Dunford what became chairman. So no, I'm aware of kind of that system, and it can
the
work
political
for you or
politics
against
up
you,
there
depending
in
on. Yeah,
DC.
again, I
Mhm.
big army chose to protect me during my whistleblowing for better or for worse. The big army decided, yeah, that's why I got to testify in uniform. You did too. That's significant. Defense intelligence agent wanted me to testify in civilian clothes. They went so far as to go around the army to the Army Reserve and try to say, "Oh, they sent me a letter saying, well, you can't testify in uniform." It's like, yeah, the Army Reserve, they still work for the big army. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. But I can tell that politics are always there, and you've
Oh,
probably
oh,
found out the
I'm
hard way.
familiar with it. When I lived in DC for 3 years, so I saw a lot of
Yeah.
stuff when I was up there, and I did a lot of internships and too when I was back in college with
Yeah.
congressmen and political
So
campaigns and
they
stuff.
so they they leak the information, you kinda get on this path. You could have still probably said no though, right? I mean, I know you read the report, you got upset, but I know a lot of people then would say, "Well, this is bullshit," but they never do anything
I
about it.
never,
You did
yeah,
something about it.
yeah. I contacted, ended up getting in touch with Dan, so they reached out, um, and then that was the end of it. I was like, okay, well, where's this gonna go? So after
Yeah.
about 2 years later, nothing happened. So from 2021 till about 5 6 weeks ago before I testified, there was kind of quiet, nothing going on. I transferred back to Florida. Um, uh, going on with my things with the Secret Service training and what I'm doing now, Florida National Guard, trying to get that going. And then Colonel Matthews, who I worked with, he was the JAG officer at the time. He gave me a call and said, "Hey, uh, the Congress, they're looking into the DC National Guard response, and you're probably going to get someone's going to get in touch with you about it." And I was like, okay. So when they reached out to me, they're like, "Hey, sir, we just want to talk to you, see what happened because when we started looking at the evidence, because once the Congress switched over from Democrat to Republican, and the Republicans took over, they got all the files from the Select Committee, and they're saying there's a lot
Yeah.
of discrepancies with what the Pentagon saying, what the reports are saying that the Select Committee looked at, and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll agree to come in. So originally I was going up there, and I reached back out to Tully Rigney, say, hey, I'm about to get involved in this again. Can you assist? So Dan got back involved. Uh,
Yeah.
Lachlan McKillen, who you spoke to before, he
Lachlan's a
um,
good guy, yeah.
yeah, he assisted. He got involved too and helped me out and point me in the right direction for that. So that was good. When we got to a point of when the Department of Defense, I want to say, I don't want to say they're painted in a corner where they had to let me testify, but they were neither for it nor against it. They were just like every time I spoke to someone, they're just like, good luck, good luck. I'm like, okay. so at some point they put me on Title 10 orders, flew me up to DC, and I did my transcribed interview and testimony. But
Good.
the reason I wanted to come out because General Flynn got promoted, all these other folks that were involved, nothing happened. I'm just like, this narrative is not accurate, and someone needs to correct the narrative for the American
Yeah.
people because what they're saying is not correct. The truth needs to come out of what actually happened, whether it's decision paralysis or some other nefarious reason. Why this happened? It shouldn't take 3.5 hours to make a decision for something this urgent. Our nation was under stress at a time of stress, and they needed a National Guard.
Yeah.
I see in my testimony the National Guard's motto is always ready, always there, and that day we weren't there, unfortunately. So
Yeah, no, I get it, and I appreciate the fact that you wanna set the record straight, and I'm gonna ask a question about that in a second, but back to the actual day of the event. So, and part of my issue, I obviously, as Dan told you probably, is like
yeah,
I came forward and set the record straight regarding 9/11. It's like, no, we were tracking these guys. Like,
yeah,
we knew who they were, and it's like, It was like, "Oh my god, we don't wanna talk about any of this. It goes against the 9/11
It's
report."
about the narrative, like, even, like,
Yeah,
there's certain media outlets, they haven't played it or nothing, and
yeah.
so
Oh, it's a narrative.
there's already a narrative set, and they don't wanna change it because
Yeah.
it's like, that's not what we're
Well,
talking about.
the other thing for me is different than you is like the Pen and I was told this by a senior guy that worked for Rumsfeld. It's like, "Tony, we will never the Pentagon will never own up to any responsibility for the 9/11 attacks. It's just, we cannot afford that." It's like so it was made very clear to me that some guy like very quick aside, I sat down with Don Rumsfeld in the green room, back in, I think it was 2011, about, 13 years ago, 12 years ago. And, I'm sitting there, and he's in my book. If you read Dark Heart, we'd met previously. Because I mean, we operatives were, we work at a very senior level like you. I mean, we're at a very senior level. And I'm sitting in the green room, and I look over we're exchanging niceties. We're there at Fox News at the building right there next to the Senate. And I said, I'm sitting there. We're getting ready to go on TV. And he says, "Hey, Colonel Shaffer, how you doing?" We're just going back and forth. And I said, "Well, with all due respect, Mr. Secretary, there's something standing between us." And he looked at me and smiled and says, "Able danger." I was like, "What?" He he knew. He knew. And he's so funny. I don't know if you ever met Don. He was a great guy. I think and I'll tell you why I changed my mind about him here in a second. So I was sitting there. It's like, yeah, Able danger. And he says, "Tony, why is that? Why is that standing between us?" I was like, "Because they lied to you." And I went through and I told him how they lied to him about what I did, why I did it. And he said, "That's not the only thing they lied to me about." And then after that, Tim, he became one of my biggest fans. He would say
Right.
good things about me. He always tried to help behind the scenes. So, based on the sincerity of what he did after the fact, I think he was lied to.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's your experience too, but I'm saying that some of these guys who may be wanting to do the right thing are lied to by staffs who are below them sometimes. It sounds to me like there was a whole group of folks, the good old boys, who wanted to go with a certain narrative that you blew up. So
Yeah. No, I believe that's correct. Like, there's a group of folks in the Pentagon that, they've been there for 20, 30 years. God bless them. When we need people, but at some point, it's like, okay,
yeah,
maybe it's time to retire. So,
yep,
so like I said, I never met General Flynn before, but it's like, maybe it's time to retire, sir. Like,
yeah. Well, my issue with a lot of that, those guys get in there and they decide, I'm just going to say it. I've told this to general officers' face. Uh, Being promoted to general does not equate to being wise. Your general officer status does not make you wise. I said it to Tony Zinni one time, General Zinni, we were doing something. It's like, yeah, you guys all think that your stars make you smarter. It doesn't. And I've said that to certain general officers don't mind me saying it to them because they recognize the truth of the statement. Others get really offended by it.
right.
And I've advised and assistant secretaries and chairmen of the Joint Chiefs, and I don't hide who that is. Those are, but I'm just saying that a lot of those guys get really full of themselves, and the narrative of their own personal greatness becomes that which overwhelms the truth often. Just saying. So
Right. I think for me it helped too that I'm currently in the Secret Service.
yeah,
I think when whether it's folks in the Pentagon or the good old boys or whoever, they're looking at my testimony and what I've done, and going against the grain, and then in the background it's like, well, he's also in the Secret Service and all this other
yeah,
stuff. So it's like they're gonna be like, it probably won't be. I would say they sit there and they're like, we're not gonna do anything. I don't. I think that's why Department of Defense hasn't put anything else out. I know the committee is working with them still to try and get more information about select committee and what they actually did with the IG report. Because
yeah.
I don't think it would look good for him if they came against me. It's like, oh well, by the way, he's in the Secret Service and he does all this, so why would he be lying about this? So it's
Yeah. No, it
like
was
even the
brilliant because
Secret Service are
political leverage is important because Dan will tell you, the track they took to me is like they tried to diminish my status as a GS-14 operative. It's like, yeah, we're just going to pretend he's not really an operative and has all this access. We're just going to call him a reserve lieutenant colonel with a bad attitude. It's like,
yeah,
okay, yeah, that's not really true.
yeah,
I mean, I've been in a room with members of the National Security Council and George Tenet, briefing them on my operations. I actually worked with Pete Schoolmaker when he was commander of Central Command, as in briefing him about my operation. So all this some low-level lieutenant colonel is not really going to cut it. But that's what they went with, and
Right.
Dan can tell you it was just stupid. And so it's good you got leverage. And thank God that they do that. So anyway, so we're going to take a quick break right now. We're going to come back after this break and continue our conversation with Captain Tim Nick. Captain Nick is a very, very brave guy who's decided that, yeah, narrative. I'm not pleased with the idea of having the American people not know the truth. So he decided to move forward and talk about that. So anyway, we're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this break with Chris joining the conversation. And stay tuned for more of the Hard Truth with Tony Shaffer. Hey, this is the Hard Truth with Tony Shaffer, Part 2, still powered by Sig Sauer. Never settle. We're on the America Out Loud Talk Radio Network, on the America Out Loud Podcast Network. Check us out, projectsentinel.com.net, on X, project_sentinel, PRJ_sentinel. So check us out. Check me out there. I'm on there too. And then, as I mentioned, we're sponsored by Sig Sauer. Never settle. I had a choice of what I carried in combat. I carried the best. I recommend you carry the best. The best is Sig Sauer. And we're sponsored by Swiss America. Be sure and call today for an opportunity to get some walking Liberty $50. Nothing better than having hard currency in these times of uncertainty. So they have a great deal. You can buy these Liberty $50. I highly recommend them. I have $50 stuck away just in case. The offer is there, 800-289-2646. Tell them Tony Shaffer sent you. Again, 800-289-2646. And check us out on our own website, thehardtruthwithtony.com. Has all the old shows, new shows will be posted quickly. And shout out to my friend Cherie Curry. Cherie is a friend of Chris and mine. Cherie does our bumper music, Rock and Roll Oblivion, which I think we all feel like we're in sometimes. And check her out at chainsawchick.com. She does amazing carving with chainsaws. And who knows what else she does with those chainsaws. I think she's well protected, though. So anyway, back to part 2. Nick, Captain Nick, Tim Nick, Captain Nick is our guest today. So I came up with a question during the break, Tim, that I want to ask you. So
Okay.
one of the guys I do know, and you went through public affairs school. Do they have a special section in the public affairs school on how to lie like John Kirby? Did they have that? I mean,
I think that's for a different.
They did a better job than the school that Corinne Jean-Pierre went to.
I know.
She
So,
loves
well,
everything.
she does.
Corinne Jean-Pierre makes me miss Jen Psaki. There we go.
I do. Well, so Tim, I know John, and I've been yelled at by him. You probably remember Bo Bergdahl. So I was running a secret option completely off the. I'm a spy. We get asked to come back. So I was running a completely off the books option to get Bergdahl back, and Mark Milley was doing the investigation after the fact of should he be charged or not. So anyway, you being a military guy, I got a copy of the charge sheet. It's like, oh yeah, he's going to be charged. They didn't like me announcing that before they were ready. So John called me after a Fox and Friends interview, which they basically just eviscerated him. And so John is good. John is good, but I just I think John is John should have retired. Well, he did retire, so he came back though. He's like COVID-19. He comes back over and over, and right? I think he's the COVID-19 of the public affairs community, right, Chris?
He's disease X, if you will.
Disease X. Heyo. Anyway, so back to Captain Nick. So tell us now that you've gone through the first part of the show and talked about how you came to your decision. What should happen next? Both to you, what do you think is going to happen, and what should happen to the overall issue of setting the narrative straight?
Well, I really think the Department of Defense and the Secretary of the Army's office needs to convene a special council and reinvestigate what happened. The Inspector General did a review of what happened, and they just took narratives from certain folks and kind of put it together and said, here it is. It's like that. I've been in law enforcement for over 10 years with the Secret Service and Florida Highway Patrol, and that's not really how you do investigations. So
right.
So I think special counsel, if they come in and actually take everything and redo everything again, give them the resources they need, say, hey, whatever you need, you're autonomous. You do whatever you need to do. We're not going to get involved. If you need something, let us know. We'll give it to you. I think that's how it should play out, and just go follow everything that happens, and not be afraid of the narrative, which I think that the Army and the Pentagon was at the time because of everything that happened, which I could understand and see, but that's just it's just not correct and right, because a lot of people, there's certain folks that got hurt by the hurt by it. Not me personally. Like, I know Colonel Matthews, he was up for general, and I think he filed a complaint against him because he wasn't promoted and things like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I really do. I think special counsel, autonomous from any group organization, is the way to go.
So
And really,
basically, you're saying an independent fact finding should be,
independent panel fact finding.
yeah. And then obviously, I would recommend with some level of punitive authority of some sort, some sort of charging authority. Would you agree with that?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
I'm sure if someone got an order and they never did it and didn't do anything with it, you could prove, we told this person to give an order and you didn't give it, and people died because of it. Well, then yeah, they need to be charged or looked seriously
yeah.
at some sort of consequences.
Well, I get it. No, I get it. I've been investigated. I've been on both sides of investigations. I've had to conduct them, 15-6 investigations. I'm a counterintelligence special agent, so I've had to do counterintelligence. I understand the idea of doing factual fact finding in a way that can be recorded. I've had to do 15-6s where we've gone after guys who attempted rape, so I get it. And I think that's what typically is lacking in a lot of the circumstance that happens at that level. Something happens when you
Right.
cross that line in a DC. Facts are not facts. It's interesting that you kind of talk about the narrative, and it seems to me that people are more than happy to essentially cash in their integrity for purposes of political gain and benefit. And I've never understood that, nor have I. Obviously, I would not be sitting in my home in North Carolina talking to you if I chose to be a corporate guy. But to me, it's almost like you got to sell your soul to be part of that.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. It's just like,
Yeah.
hey, this is what happened. It's these are the facts that happened, and I feel like the facts need to get out there so Department of Defense and the Army could, God, hopefully this never happens. God forbid, if something like, it's like, hey, we have the resources and we could respond accordingly. Like, I think everybody's seen the movie Olympus Has Fallen, the first one where it's like attacking the White House and they're sending the military. It's like, if that ever happened, are we gonna sit there twiddling our thumbs, going, "What do we do?" It's like, no, there needs to be some sort of, process.
So yeah, no, I get it, and that's why I became a whistleblower too. With 9/11, it's like we could have stopped this. And this is how. I mean, I testified both open and closed, and in front of armed services and intelligence. The intelligence part was never released for I don't know what reasons. I have no idea. Anyway, but by the way, have you seen the new movie Civil War?
Unfortunately, I didn't. It was like I wasted 2.5 hours of my life.
Ah,
Oh,
it was interesting. It was violent, and yeah. By the way, you can play for those who don't want to watch the movie. You can get Call of Duty, and there's one of the games you can actually do the
oh,
secret.
that's right. That's right.
It's more interactive, you know.
Oh, it's
But
not like the blue and the gray. That was
right,
that's a
not.
great Civil War.
And John Kirby is not in the game or in the White House in the movie. Just saying. So,
That's right. He's building the economy from the middle out and bottom up. That's what he's doing. I have a question about whistleblowing. What I've found out in the last my years of existence on this particular program. So this goes to both of you gentlemen. There are two kinds of whistleblowers in the way they're treated. There's the whistleblower who's actually doing the right thing, gets threatened, gets screwed around, and gets called a lunatic. We'll call them the Snowden types. Okay. Then you have the Vindman ones, the ones who are basically accusers who hear something that he thinks he heard from somebody else and then uses that for political gain or sort of whistleblows against a common enemy. Whereas he gets all the protections. And there's the other guy, Eric the Charming Fella, because we still can't say
Chickamauga,
his name. Yeah,
Eric Chickamauga.
we can't say his name on the internet. We couldn't for a long time. But darn it, all the other guys, people who were accusing certain narratives of the government or who were exposing certain things got their names dragged through the mud. They would Snowden was thrown out of was basically forced out of the country. So this is a problem I see because certain whistleblowers don't get these so-called protections that certain other ones do.
I think I think I can speak for me. I think in my position, with my background and my current position I'm in now, I think that's been very helpful because I keep leading back to the Secret Service. I'm currently still with them on extended military leave, but I think that is helpful also because I think if I'm sure there's people in I'm sure a lot of people have seen my testimony in the National Guard Bureau
Oh,
of
yeah.
Department of Defense.
Yes.
But when they look at my background, he's currently in the Secret Service, and they're going to be like, okay, well, there's not much we can do here. Like, what are we going to do? We're going to go against the Secret Service, and it's like, okay, like because I've had the deputy chief and people reach out to me in the Secret Service too, say, hey, Nick, you good? You need anything? So they've been really helpful in the process, even though they're not involved, but because I'm still with them. So I think I have what Dan was mentioning earlier in your last podcast, I have a kind of like an umbrella protection from different agencies I'm working
That's
with.
a good thing.
So I think that's very helpful. To go back to your other question too, about way forward for me, I haven't, like I said, Department of Defense, no one's reached out to me. So I'm probably just going steadily about my career. I'm on state active duty with Florida National Guard now with the prison mission. Governor DeSantis activated us because prisons are understaffed. So I was like, well, let me try that. It's interesting. So I'm kind of doing that right now in an admin role.
By the way, that's a good lesson, Tim. Never turn down an opportunity to do something you've never done before. I tell my sons the same thing. It's like, it's amazing what you pick up and learn from just doing things.
Yep. And I was recently accepted to law school at the Lincoln Memorial University
Oh,
Duncan
congratulations.
part-time program. So
Yes.
I have nothing's really, since I've testified, like I said, I believe based on my background and my current positions, it's very hard for folks that want to do something because it wouldn't look good to them. It's like, okay, yeah, he's an Army officer, he's in the Secret Service, he's doing all this, and now you're attacking him since he testified. So I think the narrative would go bad for them. So like I said, the Department of Defense, for better or for worse, they let me testify. I think they're paying in a quarter to let me testify. They're just, every time I spoke to somebody, they're just like, all right, Nick, good luck. You know,
Yeah.
that's all they said.
So, one little note on that. So when I was doing my testimony, Army was 100% with me, for better or for worse. I was reporting to the Assistant Deputy Chief of Staff of Intelligence, Terry Ford, the senior civilian of U.S. Army Intelligence. And his XO, I called in one day and said, do you understand what's going on? It's like, we're doing our best to protect you. Everybody in DOD is after you. And I actually had a guy, I'm just going to say his name, Carl Allard. Carl, if you're listening, you're a knucklehead still. Carl tried to come in when I was literally composing my top secret testimony and try to intimidate me to not say certain things like, and I reported it to the IG. As a matter of fact, you could talk to Dan about this. And DOD wouldn't do anything about it. Oh, well, it was accidental. It's like, really? He just walked into the room where I was topping, in a skiff, talking, typing things.
Yeah, sure, it's accidental.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah. It just
Yeah.
fell off the truck. There we go.
Yeah, I just fell. So it's like I just blew. It's like, yeah, whatever. Carl, you'd have to meet Carl. If you've seen The Simpsons,
I have.
so imagine, if you will, who's the bartender?
Oh, Mo. Hey,
Mo.
hey, Homer.
Imagine Mo as an intelligence officer. That's Carl Allard. Just saying. Just imagine it. That's Carl.
No
Anyway,
problem.
so they tried to, yeah, no, exactly. It's like, can you imagine? I really didn't see that. It's like, yeah, Carl, I did see it. Sorry. Anyway, I digress. But it is, But again, Mo the bartender's intelligence officer is quite the sight to see. And he looked like him in real life too. Really. Anyway, back to the story. The issue regarding just being protected and going through and allowing things to be said that need to be said. Do you feel then that your career will not suffer permanently from this bump in the road?
No, I don't believe so.
Good.
I think like I said, I just put in a transfer request to go to admin general, something I want to do. I'm being told I'm being top candidate being considered, so we'll see what happens in a week or two for that. But
you do know what they call the branch insignia for that, right?
oh, what's that? I'd have to.
The shield of shame.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. I thought they'd be transferring you. I thought they'd be transferring you somewhere.
No, it's like
or
no. It's just an Army thing. It's like, we Army guys we MI guys wear the Battlestar Galactica symbol.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, they have the shield, the shield. So.
Yeah.
oh, it's better than being transferred over to Greenland or Nunavut territory, or maybe the South Pole. That's where they probably throw the whistleblowers somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Well, my friend was saying, "Oh, you'll probably end up in some, UFO unit monitoring extraterrestrial life."
I'd take that. I would like that. That's up my alley. I'd do that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris. More questions for Tim?
Well, we do have a couple of things going here, but I do want to compare this here. Tony, and you're unfortunately not going to be able to meet Elizabeth here. She does the show with us. Tony had people like Elizabeth within his circle of friends within the military who did support him.
Right.
A whistleblower needs that sort of thing. Now, I understand that you're not as that things aren't happening as badly for you as maybe some other whistleblowers, but um, how important was it for you to have friends and allies in fairly decent places to give you not only the confidence to come out, but of course, support you after you come out and not jump ship like a bunch of rats?
It was very helpful. Like I said, whether it was retired Major General Walker, he reached out and support others
Very
in the
good.
DC Guard, others. So after I testified, I would start getting messages from either folks I haven't talked to in years from different units, and they just said, "Hey Nick, we saw your testimony, we support you." And they're like, "Okay." So I think a group supporting you also shows folks that might be nefarious in their actions. They want to do something like, "Okay, this guy has support. We don't want to touch him because then we're going to get burned." So I think it also deters foul actors from trying to do something to you if it shows you have support, whether it's active or quietly in the background. And I can say I do have support in the Secret Service and folks that reached out to me too, supporting me and others. So I do have a good umbrella of support, and I think it's very helpful when you have that.
And there's that balance between doing the right thing and keeping quiet for the sake of everybody else around you sometimes too. And I'm not saying I'm not advocating for the second part of that. Let's be clear. But I'm saying I can understand the balance of what you have to go through when you make the decision to come forth
Right.
and try to do the right thing. That has to be a conflict as well, gentlemen.
Cor- Correct. Yeah. Like I'm sure there's folks that have seen stuff, and I think Dan alluded last time where they would go to him and say, "Oh, just write a book in 5, 10 years, raise the baby." But it's unfortunate that it happens, but it does. Like I said, I've been blessed and lucky for me where that hasn't happened, and I have a good support network where I'm able to come out and say, "Hey, this isn't what's going on." And there's been people like the senior leadership in the DC Guard where they're back. They support me. I'm sure there's people in the National Guard Bureau quietly supporting me. When I was working with them, they were supportive.
Yeah.
Like I said, they weren't against it, or no one was trying to stop me from testifying. So if they were, I wasn't aware of it. But it pretty like the hardest thing I had to do was get my defense travel authorization verified. But other than that,
Well,
everything
that's
was.
always a challenge. That's
Yeah, it's
always a
always a
challenge.
challenge.
That never
Like, if here's the
is
best
easy.
hardest thing I got to do, then I'm in a good place. So
I'm pretty challenged myself, so that's a different story. Gentlemen, I do have some good news for you though. It is about that time.
Uh-oh.
That's true. It's time for Tony's takes. So,
Oh boy.
Captain Nick, I hope you're up for some good old fashioned takes here. If you're, and I understand if you don't want to jump in on these, but believe me, this is fun. A great round robin. So we're going to do that. Tony's takes is powered by Sig Sauer. Never settle, as you know.
Never
Tony
settle.
never settles. I
Yeah.
don't settle.
No.
I work for good people. I don't settle for those who I work with either. But Sig Sauer never
That's right.
does settle.
He's looking for a new job.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the easy stuff first.
All
Earlier
right.
this week,
All right.
I gotta tell you, Robert De Niro suffers from TDS worse than most people I know, or at least I don't know. You understand where I'm coming from? But his rant from earlier in this, his tirade, his unhinged blow up about Donald Trump in front of the courthouse where his trial was taking place, what took the proverbial cake. Did you see this guy? I mean, he even went into it. People who were just telling him, "Hey, you're wrong here," But he went
Talking to me? You
Yeah,
must be
look at
talking to
him.
me. There's no one else here.
That's right. Yeah. So what's your take, Tony?
Well, I think it's interesting because this is an opportunity for him to begin his transition to Roberta. He can put on some makeup and start doing some other things to make himself. I think it looked good with a wig, don't you? I think he'd be great. Boy, he could do redo Ronan as a girl. Don't you think that'd be kind of fun?
Well, to
That'd
be
be a
fair, I guess he has more hair than I have.
yeah. And
So
he was in Taxi Cab, so he could be like a transgender guy in Taxi Cab, right?
yep.
With
Uh, he, and there were people shouting at him. There were people.
yeah.
And then he went into it with some of the Trump supporters. And you know what Donald Trump said on Wednesday, just the day after, just after we're in the middle of his court session. He talked to reporters. He goes, looks at the camera and says, "De Niro, he got maggot."
Well,
It's just
this is the
that
thing.
was funny.
This is the thing. And Tim, you may disagree with it or not. I don't know, but the process, the court process, is supposed to be non-political. So even if you think Alvin Bragg and company are political, you shouldn't have a Biden surrogate showing up in front of the courthouse calling for the guilty verdict. That's just a bad optic. Period. It's just stupid. So I think they should have sent. I don't know who would have been a better surrogate to send. I think Pee-wee Herman's dead, so he couldn't really bring.
Yeah, he wouldn't have worked out. And
Uh,
I will say, I I don't know if there is a better one. A lot of it's mostly the ditz celebrities that are supporting Donald Trump anyway. Nobody, even some of the TDS guys. There was this one guy. I always forget his name because I'm not really big on today's celebrities anymore. But this one guy is always ranting about Trump, and finally he said earlier this year uh, that he still, no matter what happens, he still can't vote for Biden, and he changed his vote to Trump, but he still hates the guy. So Trump's still a
oh, there's a
four-letter
lot of
word.
people that hate
Right,
Trump
right, but they're
that,
going to
that
vote
vote
for him
for
this
him.
year.
Yeah.
But this leads me to my
I
next
know a
question.
few.
Right. I'm sure there are plenty. This leads me to the next question, gentlemen. That same press conference. How telling is it to you that the Biden administration needed to hound for publicity while in relatively close proximity to Donald Trump's hush money trial, where reporters already were? That's desperation in my book. What's your take, Tony?
Well, they couldn't find Hillary Clinton to show up, so they had to do something. I mean, Hillary
maybe
was off shopping for pantsuits down at Macy's, so it's like she's,
maybe she was afraid of getting mugged.
I don't no, Chris. No one would mug her. She's like you could deploy her on a patrol, and she'd be like the anti-mugging. Nobody would mug her. Trust me, they didn't object. No, that's like saying, "Hey, let's go pull the tiger's tail and see what happens." Like, yeah, I don't think we want to do that. It's like,
Oh,
so.
and you're right. What other celebrity would be a better spokesperson for Joe Biden than another angry old guy who screams into the microphone? It's my belief that Robert De Niro is looking to try out for the part of Abe Simpson in the upcoming live Simpsons movie. Darn, burn it! Yelling at the cloud, that sort of thing. But that's what he's doing. Him and Biden are two peas in a pod. Maybe he should be the vice presidential nominee.
Well, I found it interesting, and Tim, you were there. I had no idea that Joe Biden was vice president during the pandemic, and I think
Right.
it's very reasonable. I actually said I'm going to give him the death because I have never seen Pence and Biden together in the same room. They could be the same person. They could. I don't know. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on that.
Maybe he means SARS or something like that. But SARS pandemic.
We have so many. I've lost track. So, by the way, Tim, you're a law enforcement guy. I don't know if you knew this. There's been news about Dr. Fauci being involved in funding of some of the Wuhan stuff, and apparently, maybe you can confirm this. Apparently, there's a rumor that he's now hiding out as a garden gnome in a house in Hoboken, New Jersey. I don't know if that's true or not, but it'd be interesting.
I'm not aware.
Gentlemen, I have one more question.
One
And
more
this is a take
question.
I want from both of you, okay?
All right.
It's summertime. Well, summer's coming soon. The grill's coming out. So,
Yeah.
for your steaks, rare, medium, medium well, or well done?
Definitely medium. I used to be well done, but now I'm down to medium.
You'll keep going because I like them rare.
I like mine. Yeah, medium rare to rare. It's just
Tim, when I was
like
your
the
age,
way.
yeah, I liked a medium too. It's like not enough flavor. So as you get older, you're like, oh, I can go a little further. Next thing you know, you'll say medium rare. Mark my words, it's coming.
You want it nice and chewy. Now, some
Well, I don't know
nights,
what kind of steaks you eat. Mine are not that chewy. It's like shoot. It's like if you're eating
I want
shoe,
mine
there's something wrong. You
I
know.
like mine so rare they're like gum when you eat them.
Well, I can tell you what. You should have spam snakes because they've come apart. They melt in your mouth literally. Just take spam, put it in the shape of a steak, and cook it, and it's like it melts in your mouth. It's great.
Spam is oft maligned, but it's absolutely great stuff.
I
I
grew up as a kid. My dad was in the Air Force, Tim, by the way. We were in the Philippines during the Vietnam War. And so I ate a lot of spam. Maybe that explains why I'm crazy now. But I'm just saying, and spam was not bad back in those days. So.
It comes in a can, easy to open. It has a key, by the way. What? How can great food, anything with a key, not be great? Because people lock things with under lock, put things under lock and key because they're treasured and awesome. Spam, therefore, is treasured and awesome. At least that was a long time
So
ago.
Just don't mind all the preservatives. So.
I was going to say, are we being sponsored by spam now or something? Did I not get the memo?
It's lovely and wonderful. There we go.
So next thing you know, we'll be sponsored by a potted meat maker, and that'll be something. You can have all the potted meat you want. So, true story, Tim. I knew like you and I were dual status as civilian and military. I knew a National Guard captain named oh my goodness, I'm just blanking on it now. Shepard, and he was a postal service guy, had a big old gut. Larry Shepard, and Larry, I swear to God, you've been in the field, I know, and when you're in the field, you eat MREs. We had C rations back in our day, but he's out there with cans of potted meat, eating it with a spoon. It's like, how do you eat that stuff? But he loved potted meat. It's like. And I encourage our audience, go look at the supermarket, pick up a can of potted meat and look at the ingredients. It's like, I would like, I got to go somewhere. I can't sit here and watch you eat that stuff. It's bad. So,
Oh yeah.
anyway, we got to go. Tim, thank you for joining us for the Hard Truth. We appreciate
for
you
having
being here
me.
to explain everything you've done. We actually wish you the very best in the future. Anything else comes up, if anything we can do to help you continue to work to set the narrative correct, we are on board. Again, we are literally nonpartisan here. We do our best to kind of go against both sides. One side seems to be taking more hits than the other right now, just saying. But we're happy to kind of jump in as long as we can factually say things. And so, there it is. There it is.
Potted meat.
That is good eating. That and some vodka ice cream, and you've got a banquet. Right?
That's right. Throw in a hammer, you got a Pelosi party.
Oh man, God. Hey, that's great, man. Oh man, you're gonna get Captain Nicholson in trouble.
Oh.
No, I'll be all right.
All right, well, that's the end of another episode of The Hard Truth in the can, so to speak. Not a can of potted meat. We'll see you again. We'll see you all again next week for more of The Hard Truth. And go out there, do good things, and we'll be back again. So, bye.